She burst through my cabin door and shouted, "This entire place belongs to the HOA now." I stayed seated, calm as ever, because she had no clue who was sitting across the table from me. Karen's face was flushed with fury, her hand shaking as she waved a wrinkled piece of paper that was supposed to look official, though the ink had smeared from her sweaty grip. "Start packing," she snarled. "Your little getaway is done. We've decided this cabin isn't suitable for you anymore. It's being reassigned for community use." I didn't move. I didn't even lift my eyes from the mug of coffee resting on the table. Across from me, the man raised an eyebrow and adjusted his glasses. Karen didn't notice him at all, too busy shouting orders like she ruled the forest. "You really think you can just sit there?" she yelled, slapping the fake notice against the wooden wall. "HOA rules say no overnight stays without approval, and don't bother calling anyone. The law's on my side." That's when he finally spoke. His voice was steady, weighted, the kind of voice that quiets a room without ever needing to rise. "On your side?" he asked slowly. Karen spun toward him, finally registering his presence, her confidence faltering for a brief moment. "And who are you supposed to be?" she snapped. "Another trespasser?" I couldn't help the grin spreading across my face. She had just insulted the one man in the state she should have feared most. "You might want to choose your words carefully," I said, leaning back in my chair. "Because you just tried to evict me in front of the state attorney general." Her jaw dropped. For the first time since she stormed in, Karen was speechless. And that silence was priceless, worth every second of the confrontation that was about to unfold. It didn't last. Her expression twisted into a stiff, desperate smile, the kind people force when they suddenly realize they're in serious trouble, but still believe they can talk their way out. "Oh, Attorney General, is it?" she said quickly. "Well, I was just here to, inspect the safety of the property. HOA protocol, you know. We're very invested in protecting the community." She laughed, nervous and hollow, the sound bouncing around the small cabin like a cracked echo. The Attorney General leaned forward, tapping the table once, twice, 3 times. There was no amusement in his eyes. "So," he said evenly, "you entered private property without permission while presenting a falsified document." Her smile froze solid. "Falsified? That's ridiculous. This is official." She shoved the paper toward him, but the edges were jagged, and the HOA letterhead looked like it had come straight off a cheap inkjet printer. Even from where I stood, it was painfully obvious. I folded my arms and stood up. "You taped that same notice to my door last week," I said. "The one claiming I owed a fine for having a mailbox that wasn't approved." The Attorney General studied the page carefully, then let out a low, humorless chuckle. "This seal," he said, tapping it lightly, "was retired in 2008. That makes this more than fake. It makes it criminal." Karen's voice cracked. "I didn't mean I was told to do this. I was following orders from the HOA board. They told me to get rid of him." His eyes narrowed, but I caught something else in her voice. Fear, obedience. Someone higher up was calling the shots. In that instant, I realized this wasn't just a power-tripping neighbor. There was something far uglier beneath the surface. Karen staggered back, clutching the bogus notice like armor. "I swear, I didn't come up with this myself," she blurted. "The HOA president said if I didn't handle it, I'd lose my position on the board. He told me to push him out, no matter what." She pointed at me like I was the criminal. The Attorney General folded the paper neatly, his voice sharpening. "So your board instructed you to trespass, impersonate authority, and harass a property owner?" he said. "That's fraud, coercion, and possibly conspiracy." Her face drained of color. "Conspiracy? No, you don't understand. He's powerful. He has connections in the county office. He promised no one would ever question this. He said people like him," she shot me a glare, "don't deserve lakefront property." The Attorney General glanced at me, then back at her. "People like him?" he asked quietly. "Care to explain?" Karen went silent, biting her lip as realization hit her. I stepped closer. "This was never about the cabin," I said evenly. "It's about forcing certain families out. People who don't fit your perfect image." She didn't answer. She didn't need to. Her silence said everything. The Attorney General leaned back, his tone calm but edged with steel. If your president believes his influence reaches above the law, he said, he's about to learn how wrong he is. Karen's hands trembled now. For the first time, she wasn't angry. She was terrified. And I knew this was only the beginning of something far darker. The cabin door creaked again. But this time, it wasn't Karen charging in. Heavy footsteps crossed the porch, followed by a smooth, commanding voice. Karen, what's taking so long? She flinched like a child caught in the act. Her eyes snapped toward the doorway as a tall man in a tailored suit stepped inside, brushing mountain dust from his polished shoes. His confidence filled the room, like he already owned it. The Attorney General didn't move, but I felt the shift in his posture. The man's gaze moved from me to Karen, then to the Attorney General. For a brief moment, his smirk faltered before he straightened his tie. Well, he said coolly, this is unexpected. Karen rushed forward, words spilling out. Mr. Lawson, sir, I was doing exactly what you said, but he has the Attorney General here and enough. Lawson snapped, cutting her off. He stepped closer, his shoes clicking sharply against the floor. You were supposed to keep this discreet. Instead, you've turned it into a spectacle. The Attorney General spoke then, measured and precise. Mr. Lawson, I assume, president of this HOA. Lawson smiled, colder now. Titles mean nothing out here. What matters is that this cabin sits on land the board intends to regulate, and you, he gestured toward me without looking, are an obstacle. Heat flared in my chest, but I stayed composed. That's interesting, I said, because this land has been in my family for 3 generations. You don't regulate history. For the first time, Lawson's mask cracked. History is irrelevant, he said. Power is what counts. The Attorney General leaned forward, eyes locked on him. Then you're about to discover what real power looks like. The room fell silent. Even Karen stopped breathing. This was no longer a neighborhood dispute. This was war. Lawson didn't blink. He walked past Karen as if she were invisible, his gaze fixed on the Attorney General. You think your title frightens me? He said. You sit behind a desk. I sit across from judges and zoning boards. Out here, my word carries more weight than yours. Karen stared, stunned. She hadn't expected him to challenge the Attorney General so openly. But Lawson believed every word. Then he snapped his fingers. 2 men appeared on the porch, broad, imposing, dressed plainly. One leaned against the frame. The other cracked his knuckles. Karen whispered, You brought them? Lawson ignored her. You wanted this resolved, he said. This is how things get resolved. My stomach tightened, but I didn't retreat. I looked at the Attorney General. He hadn't moved. He was calm, dangerously calm. Lawson leaned in closer, smiling. Here's how this ends, he said softly. You both walk away tonight and forget this place ever existed. If not, accidents happen in remote areas like this. The fire popped in the hearth. Then the Attorney General spoke, his voice low, precise, and razor sharp. Funny thing about accidents, they don't usually end up on live surveillance feeds. Lawson's smug grin faltered as a tiny red light blinked to life in the corner of the cabin. He hadn't noticed the cameras before, and I knew every second of this encounter was already preserved. His eyes snapped toward that glowing dot, and for the first time, real fear cracked through his confidence. He took a half step back, his voice turning sharp. You've been recording this. I crossed my arms, keeping my tone even. Not just recording. It's streaming directly to the county server. Karen gasped, clapping a hand over her mouth. The 2 men on the porch shifted their weight, suddenly uneasy. They hadn't signed up to be caught on video threatening a state official. The Attorney General leaned back in his chair, calm as stone. Every word, Mr. Lawson, he said evenly. Every threat, every admission already saved, already backed up. He tapped his phone once against the table. By now, my office has a copy. Lawson's jaw clenched, but the panic in his eyes betrayed him. You think that matters? He snapped. You think anyone's going to touch me? I own half this county. The Attorney General's mouth curved into a thin, knowing smile. Then you must have forgotten about the other half. For the first time, Lawson's men hesitated. One of them muttered, Boss, maybe we should. Lawson cut him off with a glare sharp enough to silence him. He was still grasping for control, but the cracks were spreading fast. I stepped closer, lowering my voice. That's where you messed up. You thought this was just about me. But you walked in here threatening the Attorney General on camera. That's not HOA business anymore. That's federal. Karen's knees gave out, and she slid down the wall. No, I didn't sign up for this, she whispered. Lawson spun on her, rage flashing. Shut up, Karen. But the Attorney General stood, his voice carrying the weight of final judgment. No, Lawson, you shut up. The moment you walked through that door, this cabin stopped being your playground and became a crime scene. The silence that followed was crushing. Even the fire seemed to burn softer, and I knew Lawson's fall had just begun. Lawson's composure finally shattered. Sweat beaded along his forehead as the Attorney General's words sank in. He tried to puff up his chest, forcing bravado, but his voice trembled. You don't scare me. I'll bury this in court. Judges owe me favors. Money talks. The Attorney General slipped a hand into his jacket. For a tense second, Lawson's men stiffened, but all he pulled out was a small badge wallet. He raised it slowly, the gold emblem catching the firelight. This isn't county, he said coldly. This is state. And that means every federal agency is one phone call away. You really think your money can buy that? Lawson's men exchanged uneasy looks. One finally spoke under his breath. Boss, he's not bluffing. We should leave. Lawson snapped, his voice cracking. Nobody's leaving. He doesn't have proof. I stepped forward, holding up my phone, the live stream still running. Funny you say that, because over 1,000 people are already watching. Karen's eyes went wide. She pressed herself lower against the wall, whispering frantically, No. This can't be happening. The Attorney General's voice turned colder than ice. Here's how this ends, Lawson. You're going to step outside with me, calmly. Your men will stay where they are, and if you resist, the sheriff's deputies who've been watching too are already on their way. The men shifted again. One actually backed toward the porch, clearly unwilling to go down for Lawson. His face twisted with fury, but the fight was gone from his eyes. Cornered, he spat the words like venom. You'll regret this. You don't know who I am. The Attorney General leaned in close, his voice a low growl. Oh, I know exactly who you are. And tonight, so does everyone else. Just then, the distant wail of sirens echoed across the lake. The sirens grew louder, bouncing off the still water. Blue and red lights flickered through the cabin windows, and Lawson's mask finally shattered. His face drained of color as reality crashed down. The empire he'd built on intimidation was collapsing right in front of him. Karen slid fully to the floor, covering her face with both hands. I didn't mean for it to go this far, she sobbed. I just wanted to keep my spot on the board. I didn't know. The Attorney General moved toward the door as deputies stormed the porch, weapons ready but controlled. He raised a hand, commanding the room without raising his voice. He's inside. Fraud. Extortion. Criminal conspiracy. Take him. Lawson made one last desperate attempt, pointing at me. This is his fault. He's trespassing. He provoked all of this. Arrest him instead. One deputy turned, calm but firm. Sir, this man is standing on his own registered property with 3 generations of ownership on record. Then the cuffs snapped shut around Lawson's wrists with a sharp click. You're done. Lawson thrashed, veins bulging as he shouted, I own this county. I own everyone. But his words were swallowed by the sound of deputies dragging him onto the porch, his expensive shoes scraping against the old wood. His men didn't resist. They'd already backed away, hands raised, muttering that they wanted nothing to do with it. Karen looked up at me, tears streaking her face. They'll come after me too, won't they? I met her gaze for a brief moment. You made your choice when you walked through that door with a fake notice, I said quietly. Maybe now you'll finally understand this isn't your land to control. The Attorney General placed a steady hand on my shoulder. Justice is slow sometimes, he said. But when it arrives, it doesn't miss. As deputies loaded Lawson into a squad car, his shouts fading into the night, I stepped onto the porch. The cool lake breeze washed over me, carrying a calm I hadn't felt in weeks. And in that moment, I knew this fight was never just about me or my cabin. It was about standing your ground, protecting what's yours, and reminding people like Lawson and Karen that no one is above the law. I didn't fight for this country, I murmured, mostly to myself, just to be told I can't live on my own land. The Attorney General nodded slowly. And tonight, he said, the whole state heard you. The sirens faded into the distance, but the message lingered in the night air. Freedom, family, and justice always outlast corruption.